My name is Rachel Horning. I am a co-founder and CEO of Ripple Effects Events. And today we are joined by Rembrandt Flores. And we are going to have such a fun conversation with him all about PR and marketing. And so if that is what you were expecting to hear today, you are in the right place. We might even start some rumors about Rembrandt while we're at it. We haven't brought him on yet, but I'm sure he's smirking at me as I say that. So without further ado, I'm going to just go over some quick housekeeping. So you are in a Zoom webinar today, which means that if you want to ask questions, you're going to be able to do so in the Zoom Q&A feature. And we actually just put a message in the Zoom chat talking about that. So as questions arise for you, go ahead and find Q&A on your Zoom screen. And you can put those questions throughout the program. It won't interrupt us at all. And then once Rembrandt and I are done having our own sort of lightning talk conversation together, I'm going to help moderate the questions, read them aloud, so that Rembrandt can go ahead and answer your questions. I think the more personalized the questions, the better, so that he can really get to the crux of what you're asking and what you're hoping to achieve in today's event. So with that, I just want to say thank you again for joining us. The program today will go about 1 hour. We do have this time blocked off until 1:15 Pacific. However, I think we'll try and get this done in an hour. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our incredible speaker today. And here we go. Widely known as a public relations guru and a brand whisperer, Rembrandt Flores' celebrity-studded and buzzworthy events earn unparalleled attention for direct-to-consumer brands. Rembrandt has been part of a diverse portfolio of successful companies over the last 15 years. He is a disruptor, super connector, and conversation starter who's garnered media attention for brands such as Diageo, LG Mobile, Casper, Moon, Away, Macy's, Asics, Vivo, Oakley, Sonos, Cameo, Neon Carnival, and Electronic Arts, just to name a few. As the co-founder and executive director of Entertainment Fusion Group, Rembrandt showcases brands to create global awareness within the ever-changing world of influencers and digital media to maximize press awareness. He was also co-founder of Adly, the most influential and successful celebrity in-stream ad network of its time, and helped the founding team of Tinder. As a first-generation Filipino-American, Los Angeles City Council proclaimed October as Filipino American History Month, and he was among 5 people being honored by the city at the ceremony, recognized for his excellence in the entertainment industry. During COVID's shutdown of the entertainment industry, he decided to launch a short format talk show, one minute with Rembrandt, to connect with his friends in a way that has not been done before. Referred to as the TikTok, and that's T-A-L-K, very cute, show exclusively on TikTok. New episodes launch Fridays on @1MWRem. Guests have included Caitlin Carter, Ali Mackey, Paris, Logan Browning, Tyler Rich, Sasha Grey, and Ian Bowen. On the show, guests touch upon experiences during this pandemic and share intimate life news. In addition to that, he actually had some really exciting wins go down just this last week. Moon Ultralight was just named one of Time's best inventions of 2020. And I know that that's something that he believes really passionately about, so much so that he's taken on several roles within the company, from managing their communication strategy to being an investor and an advisor. Also, son of Robin Williams, Zach Williams, just started a brand of mood chews that actually helps to stabilize your mood, and I would love to try them. Thanks, Rembrandt, in advance. And with that, why don't we bring Rembrandt onto the stage so that we can give him a warm welcome. Woo! Welcome, Rembrandt.
Hey, everyone. Thanks, Rachel, for having me.
We're so excited to have you. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So I just, sang your praises to this entire group.
You did? What did you say?
Oh my God. So much stuff. What do the mood chews taste like?
They taste really good. They're gummies, and they only have 3 ingredients, and it tastes like a piece of joy, actually. So it's joy in 2 gummies, and once you take it, I think it really works. It helps me with my mood, so I take it every day.
And there's no CBD. So for anyone that's concerned about,
Yeah, it's an alternative, I think, for those who don't want to try cannabis yet or don't want to try CBD yet. So this could be a good way for those who
interesting.
can't do those other 2 right now, you know?
Yeah.
But I love CBD as well.
Yeah.
I love CBD so much.
So do I. I've been using it to sleep.
Yes.
Um, so, okay, we have you here today, Rembrandt, to talk about all things branding, all things PR marketing. You have worked with everyone ranging from Paris Hilton, Justin Bieber, to helping launch Tinder. You've basically done it all. You've seen it all. You've done events like nobody else, I think, in the entertainment industry has. And so with that, I think, you know, what people can expect in our conversation today is really a deep dive into some of his you know, success stories, even some fail stories. And at the end of the day, I think people will walk away from this conversation feeling motivated to really hit the ground running as you launch your own brands online and really understand from Rembrandt today how to connect with your audience in a really authentic way. So let's start with your background, Rembrandt. You and I both went to UC Berkeley. Go Bears.
Go Bears. We didn't get the tax this year, but oh well, we'll get it in
Oh,
again
well.
next year.
Yeah, that's what we said every year that I was at school.
We
So
had it last year and the year before, so that was good.
that was good. For
Yeah.
any sport fans out there, hopefully you appreciate that tidbit. Rembrandt, who are you and what got you into this glamorous side of entertainment PR? Let's start.
Who am I? I don't know. Um, you tell me. I have no idea. Google me, I guess. No, but seriously, I think what got me on this glamorous side is that ever since I was a kid, I just always wanted to be in entertainment. As with many kids who grow up with TV, I wanted to sort of be on TV, really, I guess, more than anything. So I knew entertainment was my calling. I just didn't know what, right? So I'm like, oh, should I be an actor? Oh, should I be a director? Oh, should I be a producer? Um, to be honest with you, I didn't even know what PR stood for when I got into this business. I actually thought PR stood for Puerto Rico. Um, Shocker. Why I
Wow.
said Puerto Rico. That's the first thing that PR comes to me when I say PR. But I
History.
was working at E Entertainment Television at the time, home of the Kardashians and Ryan Seacrest. If you guys don't know, um, and uh, and I was on these shoots because I was producing segments for an international show, and every single time without fail, everyone would come to me, "Hey, are you the publicist on the shoot?" And I go, "No, actually, I'm on the production side, helping produce the segment." And I always thought like, wow, everyone thinks I'm a publicist, which is so weird. And then one shoot we had in Vegas, we were covering a fight. I think it was a Mike Tyson fight, if I'm not wrong, but I don't remember. Maybe Evander Holyfield, actually. And the publicist on that shoot literally said, "You really should switch careers. You should be in PR." And I said, huh. And enough people have told me through the years about this PR world. So I was like, okay, I'll think about it. So I'm Googling away about PR and public relations. And I realized I've been doing this my whole life without knowing that it was called PR.
Yeah.
And then someone from another agency literally came to me and was like, hey, we should start a PR agency together. And, you know, I was young and naive and I'm like, oh, sure, let's do it. So the two of us literally went to, it wasn't Barnes and Noble, it was Borders. I think they no longer exist. The Borders bookstore. I picked up a dictionary and I literally went through the dictionary like this and then stumbled upon a word called fusion. And I'm like, looked up the definition of it and said like that sort of describes what me and my partner are. We're a fusion and everything, blah, blah. So Fusion PR started, and there is that story of how I got started in PR.
Wow, interesting. I would love to know sort of what that looked like in the early days and what you had to learn about yourself as a leader in the early days and how you got from, I think you've been at this 19 years,
15, yeah,
15
15 or
years.
so. Yeah.
So sort of like what that growth really looked like, and then we can go ahead and get into sort of like the winning formula for social. But just because there's a lot of like startup leaders, what did you have to learn about yourself to really push through in the early days when it was probably a lot more grunt work than you?
Yeah, it was a lot of gut work. We actually didn't do any of the things that we do now when we first started. So we started off only as a talent PR agency.
Okay.
So that means in layman's term that we only repped talent, meaning actors, actresses, artists, musicians, and whatnot. And that's very different from what we do obviously today. Today we rep corporate brands and we do events and whatnot. But back then, the reason why I think I decided to move from talent to corporate is because I felt that this is not to offend anyone in talent PR. I just didn't personally like that kind of work of dealing with individuals where you're at their beck and call and at their very whim, right? Everyone at that time when I started, they all wanted to be in Vogue or they all want to be on the cover of GQ. And I'm like, guys, you're not GQ material yet or not Vogue material yet. And they just didn't understand that because in their heads, they thought they were. And even when it came down to walking down the red carpet, they would ask like, oh, why isn't so-and-so interviewing me? And I'm like, well, because you're not there yet. And it was so hard working with the talent that I was working with because they weren't quote unquote A-list at the time, right? So when someone's on A-list and they think they are, then it kind of is not a winning combination. And so for me, being the diva that I am, I was like, I can't do this. And then that's why we sort of pivoted the business, or I did. I created another division, and my partner at the time kept doing talent PR. And I'm like, I'm going to do brand PR. I'm going to do events. I'm going to do entertainment marketing. I'm going to do something completely different. And that sort of was the impetus for us to keep growing in that direction.
Got it. So for anyone that's wondering like what the difference is between brand PR, perhaps like celebrity PR, and then also brand marketing, like how do you break that out into different segments when people are like, but wait, like what does this
Yeah,
mean?
I mean, when we were doing talent PR, again, I kind of explained that it was just for talent, and brand PR is just for brands. And the kind of PR that we do is not corporate per se. It's
Mhm.
entertainment PR, as you described, right? So we're trying to get a brand within the entertainment space. So whether it be aligning them with a celebrity partnership
Right.
or doing influencer marketing for them or getting them into publications that are more entertainment driven. So like the weeklies that include People Magazine, In Touch, Life and Style, OK, Star, all those things. And then more, again, lifestyle press for these particular brands. So it's not the deep dive or like tech press, or it's not deep in like endemic press and B2B press. It's
Mhm.
B2C. So it's all consumer lifestyle press that we get for our brands so that they can get the traction they need for sales. At the end of the day, everyone hires us to sort of elevate their brand in order for them to get more sales.
Yep. So kind of like an existential, potentially softball question for you.
Okay.
Would you say people are more afraid of success or failure when it comes to marketing themselves or their brand online?
Oh God. I think most people, and maybe myself included, are afraid of both, right?
Mhm.
I think people are afraid to succeed because they're like, okay, once I get there, where do I go?
Right.
So when you do reach a modicum of success, the only way to go is like, do you sustain it or you go down? And so once you experience that, I think people are afraid that they're not going to be able to sustain that forever because it's hard to sustain everything forever, right?
Yeah.
So if you're successful, how do you stay successful forever once you reach success? Um, on the flip side of that, obviously, I think people are afraid to fail,
Yeah.
but I always think it's better to fail because I think you learn more when you fail, right? The more times you fail, the more I think you learn, and then you're able to be a success.
Yeah.
If I were going to choose between the two, obviously earlier in life, I'd rather fail,
Yeah.
obviously many, many times. So I learn all these things. So then I can know what not to do to be successful and then
Yeah.
try to maintain that success
Yeah.
forever.
Actually, Matthew McConaughey has an interview on the Calm app right now where he talks about green lights, yellow lights, and red lights in life. So
Uh,
the green lights are, you're getting all the yeses, and he was talking about getting really famous really fast off of one of his first like super successful movies. And then it was just green lights everywhere, and he got really overwhelmed. So the green lights can be a blessing, but then they can also sort of make you feel like your feet aren't on the ground anymore. And then the yellow lights maybe force you to pause, reconcile maybe some like internal tension that you might be experiencing. I think of red lights as like terrible relationships that you're in, and then you have a breakup, and it just forces a lot more like internal sort of understanding, like what went wrong, how can I, learn from this experience. And it really comes back down to like a growth mindset, which it definitely sounds like you exercise, and
yeah.
just probably a lot of your clients have to as well with social media. And on that topic, what is the winning formula for building your audience online, and how does that generally translate into activating your authentic voice? And how do you because obviously you're working with clients to do that. So maybe you can also just offer some advice for the people that are watching and listening right now that are probably wondering, like, how the hell did Rembrandt do this? You know, how does Paris Hilton do this? Like, and how do they keep that momentum alive?
Yeah. So let's start off with the first question. So your first question was how to maintain the brand online. What was the question?
Yeah. How do you maintain your authentic voice online, and how do you really tap into yourself to like allow that authentic voice to even come out in the first place?
Right. I mean, I tell every single brand that we work with this. Um, I tell them you have to be, I think you mentioned it, authentic. To
Mm-hmm.
this day, I think that's the most important thing you could do to maintain that specific presence, right? Because I think that the audience knows when you're not being real. The
Yeah.
audience knows when they're being force fed information.
Right.
So to me, you have to really present your real version of your real self
Yeah.
so that people who sort of value that will follow you and stay with that brand for life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're like, let's say, a CBD brand, we just talked about CBD earlier, right? So there's a brand that I love called Well CBD. They're a lifestyle brand, and
Mm-hmm.
they focus on having this best lifestyle for their audience. And everything that they've done, whether it be visually on Instagram or Facebook, or things that they're putting out as far as content, because content is king, it reflects that lifestyle, right? So I think that anyone who wants that healthy lifestyle will obviously choose Altwell because that's what they've been promoting since the day that they started the company. And they just started this year. It's a brand new company, and they have amazing product, probably the best tasting CBD I've ever tried in my life. So that's why I said, like, you know what? I'm going to use their protein because it tastes the best and it has CBD. So it's a winning combination.
And then as far as your own personal brand, so you obviously are big on Instagram, you've got a great Twitter following, you're building a TikTok following as well. You're really good at marketing yourself as a brand, and a thought leader and a personality. So I'm really curious to hear, like, on the topic of authentic voice, what questions do you ask yourself before you publish stuff? Like, how do you have that consistency in your authentic voice? And like, what questions do you ask yourself to make sure like this is within, my brand before you hit send
Yeah.
or post?
So there's only one question I ask myself before I put something out in the universe. So the question is this really me?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's it. Again, we're talking about authenticity. That comes with me building my brand as well. It took many years to find out who Rembrandt really was.
Right.
I didn't always know who I was, just to be honest with you, right? I think we're always learning and growing, and then we're evolving, and we're becoming a version of ourselves, a different version of ourselves as we go on in life.
Yeah.
But at this particular point in my life, I know what I think I am, right? So I never put things out I never put out too many serious things, I guess, on my feed because I find myself a little bit more comedic on the comedic side.
Yeah.
So, and I think I'm very sarcastic and a little, I don't want to say bitchy, but like a little bit like that, right? So I find that people find me funny, and so they expect me to be a little bit more sarcastic and a little bit more of that. So everything I put out is sort of like serious, but not too serious.
Mhm.
And I like to be funny. So I like to make people laugh. And maybe I should try comedy after I retire. But you know, if you watch my TikTok show, for example, 1 Minute with Rembrandt, like I'm pretty, you know, I kind of tend to make fun of my guests without them knowing that I'm making fun of them. So I jab them a little bit without them knowing that I'm jabbing them, but I'm really jabbing them pretty hard.
Yeah.
But they're so kind enough to like jab back. So it works because it's all about the chemistry. And
Mhm.
again, all about that word that we've been using throughout this webinar, authenticity. So
Mhm.
that's me, authentically me.
Thank you. If you could leave the audience with a key takeaway regarding building their brand online, what would it be? And I want to invite you to even think about sponsorships and, you know, different sort of um, maybe connections to other industries, maybe unlikely bedfellows. There's probably a lot that we haven't covered yet. So really just like take it wherever you think it needs to go.
Yeah, I mean, again, bringing it back, you know, when people are building their brands, they have to be authentic and they have sort of a lane. It's really nice to be focused. So try to be as hyper focused as humanly possible, and then double down and go all in on that, right? So
Mhm.
if you're going to be the comedy guy, go all in on being the comedy guy. If you're going to be the self-taught cook on TikTok, great. Then go really deep and say like everything you're making is only stuff that you literally are doing on the fly, and you're just doing it on taste and basically doing what feels right to you. But at the end of the day, again, you have to be really strong-willed
Mhm.
and stay in a lane, and then go all in and drive in that lane and stay in that lane until you get the success that you've been looking for.
Yeah.
But don't be so afraid to like that you're not driving in the right lane, meaning that you're gonna swerve left or right. Stay in it and try to stay in as long as you can before you're like, okay, this is definitely not working. I failed X amount of times, so now I need to switch lanes.
Okay.
So, but I know that's hard to figure out that end of that road to be able to switch to a different lane. It's
Yeah.
difficult.
Um, so speaking of like difficulties, you've launched everything from Tinder to glamorous charitable gala fundraisers for Art of Elysium and Unlikely Heroes, with so many moving parts,
Yeah.
um, and likely some chaos thrown into the mix. I'm really curious, when the going gets tough, what keeps you grounded? And you can apply that to not just in-person events, because those are currently dead, but even just the work that
Yeah.
you're doing, that feeling of like overwhelm. What keeps you grounded?
Yeah. So I remind myself when the going gets tough, it's this thing that we say in the PR world. It's called it's PR, not ER, right? So at the end of the day, hopefully no one dies from an event, or hopefully no one dies from something we're putting out in the universe in the PR world. Um, but I have to remind myself, we're not saving lives, so no one's going to die. So everything will be okay. And
Mm-hmm.
then what keeps me grounded, besides reminding myself that, you know, it's not life and death, is my very amazing, you know, network of friends and family who literally tell me like, dude, calm down. Like sometimes I get kind of wound up
Yeah.
and being in my own world and think that everything is crashing around me or everything's important when it really isn't, when in the grand scheme of things, because literally you need that, right? And doing this type of work. So they'll call me out. They'll say like, you need to calm down. And then I think about, okay, let's look at the bigger picture, the world at large. Again, no one's dying, but there are people dying nowadays, right? We're still in the middle of a pandemic. There's the biggest social movement that's ever happened in the history of the United States this year. There's way more things that are happening and probably more important than some event or some launch. And I just have to put myself in the place where I go like, okay, I'm going to do the best that I can for our client to get that attention and to get them to have this best event or whatever. But at the end of the day, if things go wrong, then they go wrong.
Yeah.
Then we find a solution and then we fix it.
Right.
And 10 out of 10 times, to be honest with you, no one else sees those mistakes
Right.
when I'm at an event or anything else, when we're launching things. Like no one else sees it. I do.
Yeah.
And maybe a few people behind the scenes do. But I ask after these events and after these launches, did you notice that X? They're like, what are you talking about?
Mhm.
No one notices. So again,
Yeah.
let it go. Let it go.
So you have this great perspective on this is not the ER. Obviously, you had to have some blunders along the way to
Yep.
reach that, point. So I'm just curious if you can tell us a little bit more about teachable moments in your career. I think earlier you'd mentioned having some fun stories about some different celebrities that may or may not be named, but you certainly have a long roster of experiences and teachable moments I'm sure that you could share.
Teachable moments. Um, I guess the moments are like, I think what I would teach someone now that I didn't do while sort of being in the height of all this is that to really live in the moment and
Mm-hmm.
enjoy that moment. Because I think I've gone through life, especially in the PR marketing world that I've been in. I've had these amazing experiences. I've traveled the world. I've been with every single celebrity you can think of, whether it be Brad Pitt or Nicole Kidman. But the one thing that I really do regret is that I didn't enjoy that moment as it was happening. I
Yeah.
was too worried about everything else going on. And that's sad, right? Because I probably won't have those experiences again or
Mm-hmm.
that specific experience again. And I think that we definitely now in 2020 and beyond really need to take a step back and remember how lucky we are to do what we get to do every day. And that's the one thing that I would teach anyone who's in this business or not in this business yet and want to be in this business is
Yeah.
to really, really savor those moments because I do regret it. And I've been thinking about it a lot lately. Obviously, I have plenty of time now being at home every day. But I look back at my life and see all these moments, and sometimes they just come to me out of nowhere, and I go, "Wow, I did that," or "Wow, I was in the room. Wow, I had a conversation with Brad Pitt. Wow, like it's just those things. You're just like pitch me moments." Or with the one time like I did an event with Prince, I was like, I'm in Prince's house, like, and he's performing for like literally just 150 people, and I'm here witnessing this, and again at the time, I didn't think anything of it. I thought, whatever. And I'm mad that I didn't get to enjoy those moments
Yeah.
because I'm never having that moment with Prince again. He's
Right.
no longer here.
Right.
So I'm
Wow.
sad. But I did find a thank you card from him uh, not too long ago, and that obviously brought me to tears.
Wow.
But yeah, that's that.
I think perspective is obviously so important, and COVID has obviously invited a lot of us to really take a step back and reevaluate our work, ourselves, who we are, how we show up in the world. What would you say is maybe the biggest silver lining in the world of PR and marketing, or even just for you personally? Given that we're all in a pandemic right now, obviously this doesn't take away from the fact that people are suffering, but there's also I think an important moment for us to pause and have some gratitude and perspective. So what for you would you say is the biggest silver lining?
The biggest silver lining, I think, for our industry is that now we have people's attention, right?
Mm-hmm.
So before we had to fight for people's attention because work got in the way of traveling back and forth from work. Obviously, when we're at work, we're not completely working 100% of the time because then you have meetings upon meetings upon meetings, or then you have the lunch and then you have your coworkers and all these things. So we're always distracted. So I feel like now they have everyone's attention. Let's take advantage of that, right? So most people are home. And we found that to our advantage because when we're working with celebrities or influencers before, they were like traveling the world and they always had this and that. They had to go to set, they had this, and now they're home. And so when we're putting together, let's say, a seating program for one of our clients, we're actually getting to these celebrities influencers faster than ever. and they're actually opening it then and there, and they're actually giving us feedback now versus waiting because they haven't opened their package in 4 weeks. So we're not ever finding out like the real input from these celebrities and influencers, but now we do. A second thing I would like to point out is that everyone's more forgiving. You know, we're all in this pandemic together. So we always can use the excuse of pandemic if something goes wrong. Oh, COVID. Oh, pandemic. Oh, this, blah, blah, blah. So that's great. So you can use that to your advantage. And last but not least, I think this is the perfect time to try something new and different, right? Because everyone's so forgiving because we're in a pandemic. So if you want to try something that you've never done before with a campaign or whatnot, this is great because if it fails, it's okay. Blame it on a pandemic. But if it works out, then you're a genius because you figured this out during a pandemic.
Ooh,
so
work it like your advantage either way.
Exactly. It's amazing. I gotta close the door. I'll be right back.
I love the sound.
Sorry about that.
That was really fast. That must have been
the door was literally 3 seconds away.
Welcome back. Okay, so I want to make sure, because we do have some techies joining us today, and obviously you have recently begun a foray into angel investing. So I want to have a couple more minutes just between you and me talking about the angel investing. And then this is just a quick reminder to anyone on the line. We have 2 questions in the Q&A so far, plus Danielle Hill has a really great question in the chat. So we have 3 questions so far, but please use this as your opportunity to begin formulating your questions, and we'll spend roughly the second half of our program today actually digging into your Q&A questions live with Rembrandt. So before we jump into that, let's talk about some venture funding and investment. Tell us a little bit more about what inspired you to dip your toe in that pond, and really what your vision looks like moving forward with venture.
Yeah, I started this process, I would say, in 2018, so maybe 2 years ago. And I was working with so many D2C brands at that time. So I was working with Casper, which is the bed company, and then Away Luggage, and Koyo, and ColourPop, and Sonos, and all these things. That's when I first started working with them. And I was saying like, oh my God, this is so awesome. And then I would see the valuations of these companies skyrocket to like unicorn status. I was like, why am I not like being a part of this? Like, it's great that I'm working with them sort of on the PR side or the seeding side or whatnot. And I'm like, I should really consider this. And so I talked to a bunch of people who were angel investors. I have a friend who's a huge angel investor, and several other people who are. And I sort of asked them a lot of questions and said, how do I do this and whatnot? They're like, you just need money. And I'm like, okay, so that's my goal. I'm going to try to get some money so I can do some angel investing. Granted, I'm not writing big checks, so don't think that I'm sort of like this big time player in the angel investing world. I'm not. But I figured out sort of a model that works for me. And that is, putting some cash, X amount of cash, and the rest will be in services, right? So obviously I personally, because of the work that I do, I can be sort of a strategic angel investor versus just an angel investor just putting in money. And I tried it out, and then I got another, brand underneath, and then another brand underneath, another brand. And now I have like 20 companies that I sort of invested in, and I think they're all doing really well. And you mentioned one of them at the top of my introduction with Moon, but it's been a wonderful ride, and I really like this. It's sort of like my side hustle, right? Doing this angel investing on the side, and I really truly enjoy it. And so if you guys know any brands that are hot, whether they be consumer, entertainment, lifestyle, tech, send my way. I would love to take a look, because I'm always looking for the next big opportunity, the next Tinder, the next Casper, the next Away, the next Cameo, the next, whatever it may be. I'm here for it, and I want to continue doing this for for as long as I can. I mean, what's great about angel investing is like there's no age limit, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can do this forever technically. So it's something that I want to do.
And yeah, when Rembrandt and I were practicing a little bit before today, we had a really brilliant idea. In fact, Rembrandt, it was your idea. Maybe we'll share it later.
Maybe we will, or maybe we won't, because we want to keep it to ourselves so no one takes the idea and runs with it before us.
Oh, if we feel so compelled, maybe we'll share this with everyone.
Yeah,
Also, all the more reason to stay on till the end. We did promise a one-on-one session, and we can figure out how we want to actually facilitate that little raffle for those that stay
exactly.
on to the end. And we have some amazing questions, Rembrandt.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And we have another bear in the house.
We have another, wait, Berkeley grad?
Go Bears. Hi, Rem. I can relate to what you said about savoring the moment. Same here. Thank you. Tell me, are you seeing a demand or interested in weaving in more partnerships that are hitting more multicultural? I've been focusing on targeted executions more in Latinx and LGBTQ plus activations are filling most of my time now. I'll hit you up, buddy. Roman.
Good question. The answer is yes. Obviously, with the biggest movement that happened in the history of the United States with BLM this year, there has been a call to try to be more inclusive with all our brands. So whether it be Black, brown, whatever, all of it. So the short answer is yes. So we are looking for to sort of fill that gap, I guess. And then also, I know you brought in LGBTQIA plus, same thing. Like we want all our brands want to be represented by America at large. So obviously all of that, every color and every way that you, I guess, need to be represented with our brands for sure. Thanks for the question. That was a great question.
Danielle Hill asks, well, first she says, love Rembrandt. Question for him. How do you select trusted advisors for your personal and professional growth? Do you think having a sounding board is the key to staying authentic to yourself and your brand? I love that question.
I love that question too. Thanks, Danielle. How do I choose my advisors? Wisely. But how do I choose them wisely? I would say that from my experience with those people in my life, right? So I'm not choosing an advisor that I just met. I'm probably choosing advisors that I've kind of known for a very, very long time. And in terms of a sounding board, I really kind of have that in my life, right? So I have friends from college, from Berkeley, who are huge in the tech world, huge in the business world, huge in the, again, angel investing world, all that stuff. So I'm very lucky that I met these people along the way and sort of collected them all and sort of lean on them when I need them the most, right? So whenever I'm doing an investment or when I'm ever doing working with a brand that I'm sort of like, teetering on, either working with them or not working with them, I ask my advisors. I really do. I ask all of them and say like, hey, I am considering working with this brand. What do you think? And so if they all agree and like the brand, then I'm going to work with them. If not, then I probably won't work with them. Mm-hmm. I'm very fortunate that I'm in a stage in my life where I can be picky of what brands we work on. And again, it took this many years to be able to do that, but it's all worth it because we don't have to deal with people who are not nice or who don't treat people well or don't believe in equality or whatnot. So all those clients who I used to say yes to just because they gave us a paycheck, I can say no to now. And I've said no so many times this year because I was just like, life is too short. And if that's the one thing that I learned this year is that it is that way. Life is too short, right? Wow. We're not promised tomorrow. So we might as well do the work with people that we truly admire and respect and love and know that will give us that same thing back. That's really important for me to be able to like wake up every day and love everyone we work with. And this year is probably the first year where I can say that. I don't have a single client or I don't have a single investment where I'm not, where I wouldn't want to break bread or have a drink at a bar with any of these people. I
Yeah.
truly love all our partners and clients and friends.
That's so awesome. I don't know too many people in the PR and marketing world that would be able to say that. So
And,
kudos to you.
apparently, I'm a unicorn, I guess.
Yeah, that's huge. Okay, so we have currently 3 additional questions in the Q&A. Keep them coming, folks. Keep them coming. We're going to get through, I think, all of these. What are some best practices for ensuring influencers post on social media on behalf of clients, especially on Instagram stories in a timely manner?
What the question is, how do I guarantee the success of that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the follow through.
Well, I think the first and foremost thing is that you need to have an amazing product, because if you actually have a product that people love, they'll post it without you even asking them to, right? And packaging is everything, right? So when someone gets a package and they go ooh and ah, then you know they're gonna want to post it. So I think, making sure that what they're getting and seeing for the very first time is attractive, and make sure that your product obviously is, of value to them in some way, shape, or form, and that it works, or that tastes good, or look good, all that stuff is truly important. And then to guarantee the success is follow up. Follow up if they haven't done so. It doesn't hurt for you to DM them or email them or text them or whatever you have at your disposal and say, hey, did you get my product? If so, what do you think? And then that'll sort of spawn them to be like, oh, right. Oh, I didn't open it yet. Or they did open it and they forgot to post, or maybe they weren't going to post, and go like, hey, do you mind posting? They're like, oh, of course I'll post for you.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that you need to stay on top of those celebrities and influencers, obviously, in order to get the most bang for your buck. Again, these people cannot use the excuse that they don't have time. Everyone has time now. So they will find the time if they like your product. If they don't, they probably won't post no matter what. So, I've had people tell me like, oh, by the way, I'm allergic to this because it has an ingredient I'm allergic to. Why would I expect them to post if they're allergic to something? Of course not. Don't post. It's fine. It's easy. Or if they didn't get the package, obviously I don't expect someone to post. But if they like the product, they got the product, most often than not, they will post for you without being prompted to.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, Kiara asks, how will you pivot the events business as events are on pause? And what do you think the future of events looks like?
Yeah, so I think the pivot is, I don't think, good question, Kiara. I think the pivot is that with events, we've kind of done sort of these virtual events, which are kind of, I don't think will ever replace events IRL, right? Ripple effects. That's what you guys do. You're supposed to do. That's what you guys are doing, right? They'll never replace it, but it's a good bandage for now, right? In terms of what we've done a couple of Zoom events, some digital events, and they're great. And you could still interact with the brand, on sort of like this two-dimensional screen. But we've also done sort of these drive-ins, right? So whether that be a movie drive-in, or whether it be an experience that you take your car through, we did that with Art of Elysium for an art exhibit, and it's great, and they get to experience it. But again, you're not getting the up and close feel of it. You're not getting the vibe and energy of being with the people. There's something different when you're around 100, 200, 300 people all in a room, with the music together, and eating and drinking and being with celebrities and influencers and VIPs and the press all around. There's just nothing like that. That's a magic that we'll never get until, obviously we get a vaccine, and obviously when we can be together in a safe way. But I think what we're doing personally is that we're just not doing it. If it's not safe, we're just not doing it. Are we ever going to go back as an agency to do events? Maybe in 2022 again. Or I've come up with a solution earlier this year. I don't know if it was the best thing, but I thought it was the best thing for our client, was just do them really small. Have a bunch of super intimate ones when we are allowed to congregate again. Right now we're in a lockdown here in LA, so we're not really allowed to, but where it's limited to 10 people or 20 people, and then do several of them where everyone has to get tested. And then, those 10 people get to experience this, and maybe the following week or whatever, a different 10 people, again, everyone get tested, everyone gets to experience this event in real life again. But again, it's just not the same. And it's sad that we're not going to get to that place for a really long time, but it is what it is for now. Unfortunately, I want to be in events so badly again, but is it going to be for me? Am I going to retire before events come back in 2022? Maybe. So I don't know if I'm going to personally do them, but I'll be involved somehow, maybe not me directing as an executive producer for these events, but, I'll be on the sidelines cheering everyone else on.
Yeah, at Ripple Effects, we've had a lot of conversations too, just about like our own business model. And is this something that relies heavily on a pandemic? Yes, no. And I think our takeaway is that the future of events looks like hybrid events where there's a virtual component and an in-person component,
Yeah.
Especially if we are going to be forced to do more like intimate events in the beginning, which I'm sure we will be. Even just from people's comfort level, like there's just a lot of fear now around human contact, which is sad to say. But I think we're going to see a lot of hybrid events where there is some kind of build out, a virtual infrastructure where there's video capture and audio capture happening of the live audience and the live content, whatever's happening for audiences at home and in person. Obviously, time will tell, but
yeah,
that's really how we're angling our business anyway, to be able to just like jump in and
yeah.
do the in-person thing, which is honestly what we have more experience doing anyway.
Yeah.
And that's our joy as well, as the in-person events. But
Yeah.
here we are.
Yeah.
So here's another question for you, Rembrandt. And thank you, Kiara. That was a great question. Okay, what are some do's and don'ts for artists as it relates to PR? Can you share any experiences working with artists that may have done things to permanently damage their careers? I know you also had some amazing fail story that you were going to share, so maybe this is like a good opportunity to do that.
So for artists, the do's and don'ts, there's so many. We don't have the time for all of them, but again, I feel like a broken record for the do's and don'ts, but I'm going to say this again. For the do's, like, just be authentic. You have to be really real. So don't pretend to be someone that you're not, just because everyone else seems to be doing something. Don't do it. If it's not you, do something else. Like, we have the room for someone different, and we appreciate differences, I think, when it comes to artists. So just do you. How about that? That's the best one. Do you. And then don't not do you. How about that? How about that as an answer for the don'ts? But yeah, so don't be someone you're not. Just be real. And so that's the most succinct way I think I'm going to answer that question.
Mm-hmm.
You wanted a best fail story?
Mm-hmm.
Huh. The best story is I don't fail hard. I'm just kidding. So I've failed many times in my life, in my career. But the one that literally was probably my first, and I was literally like devastated, was a time, I don't know, 7 years ago or whatever, or 8 years ago. And I was hired by this big, huge company that does awards, or they do like music or whatnot. And they were doing an after party for their award show. And they come to me and they go, Rembrandt, we want you to produce the after party and all these things. And I go, well, okay, but who's it with? Like, who's it for? Who's the celebration? They're like, oh, it's for Drake. And I said, Drake? And they're like, yeah, Drake. I'm like, oh man, I'm done. Like, sure, of course, I'll do it because it's Drake. So it's to honor Drake. for winning all these awards or whatever. And so I found the venue. I had to like get the celebrities, the press, whatever there. And I even got like a title sponsor, which is a client that I've wanted for so long. It was, I think I could say, it was Microsoft, and it was specifically for Xbox 360.
Wow.
Which is huge, obviously. And so we're doing this event, and the award show happened. It was like the award show was like a couple blocks away from the venue. And so we're there, the party's all set up. It's amazing, obviously. And then the celebs starts coming in, right? All the celebs come in. It's like the Jonas Brothers, the Hiltons, like the Pussycat Dolls, Buster Rhymes. Who else was there? DJ Khaled. Anyways, that's not important. So I'm there, and then the clients were literally like, "Where's Drake?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And so I asked the contact who hired us for this event, and they were in charge of everything. They were in charge of obviously Drake's arrival and all that stuff. They're like, "Oh, he's coming. He'll be here like blah blah blah." I'm like, okay. So then half an hour comes and there's still no Drake. So then the clients, the sponsors are like, "Where's Drake?" And then I went back, and this was several times now. I don't want to keep repeating it back and forth, but it was over 2 hours of me going back and forth and back and forth. And every time I dreaded going back to the sponsors, and it's like, and to the point where I was just like, I don't know if he's coming. And the look on their eyes was like daggers. They're like, "We only sponsored this party because it was for Drake." And I said, I myself only got involved with this party because of Drake. Needless to say, Drake never showed up to his own party, or the party that was supposed to honor him. And I still don't know to this day, and I don't care anymore of what happened, but I don't know what the breakdown happened between my contact at the award show and obviously Drake's camp, but I still don't know what happened. But the lesson that I learned was like, if I'm ever going to be involved in anything regarding talent, like I need to actually have a direct line to make sure that this never happens to me again. Like I had my tail between my legs. I was like, I can't believe this is happening to me. And now I will never be able to work with Microsoft. I'll never be able to work with Xbox 360 because they think I'm like a loser, even though the party was amazing and obviously with great celebs other than Drake.
Yeah.
But it was still for Drake. The title of the party was blah, blah, blah for Drake, celebration for Drake. So
Wild.
That's something that I learned and take with me forever. And I remember, and I'll always go like, remember that time. So I will never make that mistake when it comes to talent. I will never let it ride everything on just one person when I'm doing an event, because it's not worth it. Because what if something happens to them? Then everything else doesn't matter. That you had the greatest event, didn't matter that you had all these other celebs. It was for Drake. Mm-hmm. So that's my story of failing miserably.
I feel like I need to like shake that off.
Me too.
So that's epic. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
Like a good reminder to like not take for granted like the main ingredient of whatever the thing is that we're doing. We actually had just had an event. We do virtual events now, and my client didn't plug in the computer, and they were the MC. Something that I should have noted ahead of time, but just take for granted that people are always going to plug in their laptop before going live as an MC. And the computer died with about 15 minutes to go in that fundraising event. So note it, next time, make sure the thing is plugged in. Make sure Drake is actually planning on showing up. So we have one more question, Rembrandt, and then I think we can jump off from there. But I also wanted to just check in with you, Rembrandt, because we promised a one-on-one chat with you to anyone that actually stays on as like a raffle. So one person.
Yeah, so raffle it off. How much time am I spending with this person?
So it can be 30 minutes, like a little 30-minute coffee.
Okay, fine. Let's do a 30-minute like Zoom.
30-minute coffee.
Yeah, they can ask
virtual.
me anything. I'll impart as much knowledge as I can in those 30 minutes for them.
Okay, so let me look who's online right now. One sec. I mean, I'm tempted to actually say if you're online, put a little +1 next to your name in the chat if you're interested in a 30-minute virtual coffee, because I
Yeah,
don't,
maybe they don't want it. So
if
we
they
don't
don't,
want to force it on anyone if they don't want the
exactly.
30 minutes with me.
Put a little +1 in the chat real quick, people. I'll model what I'm talking about for you. So for example, Rachel Horning put a +1. And actually, while people do that, let's go into that last question, Rembrandt.
Okay.
So, last question from Pedro Acosta. Do you guys have an accelerator or incubator for media marketing new concepts?
We do not.
Hmm.
So, but I'm very interested in that actually. So good question. But yeah, hit me up after this and we'll talk.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So we've gotten, wow, our timing is impeccable today.
Why? Are we leaving exactly at 1 p.m.?
I mean, it is 12:58.
It's amazing.
Maria, I think this ought to go to you because I think you were raising your hand throughout the program and you put a +1 next to your name. So Maria Simone and oh yeah, building a media fund accelerator, would love to chat. Okay, I think the two of you are like destined
Great.
to have a coffee talk. Maria,
Great.
can you either message me, what is your view as, if you're comfortable, Maria, actually, no, we have your info on the back end of Eventbrite. So I'll get your email address from Eventbrite so you don't have to share it here. And we can connect to you and Rembrandt. And I got a little thumbs up. Yes. Cool. Well, with that, we have 1 minute to spare, and I just want to give you a big round of applause, Rembrandt. I'm sure others
Thank
would
you.
do the same if they could, but it's webinar mode, so they can't. And I just want to thank you so much for your time today and all the prep work that you and I did. I know that this takes time out of maybe not the busiest day that you've ever had, but still, I know you're working really hard to continue propelling your company and these investments. You've got a lot going on. So
yeah, I have a few things cooking.
You got a few things cooking. So with that, thank you. I look forward to seeing you prosper moving into the future. And yeah, I look forward to connecting offline, and maybe we can do some event stuff in the future.
Exactly. Thanks, guys, for listening. And this is recorded, right? So people can watch this after the fact too?
Yeah, okay. So we'll like spread this like wildfire.
Yeah.
Yay!
Like wildfire.
Cool.
Not in California. Sorry.
Not in California.
Sorry. I need to say that. That's appropriate of me.
Nice little dose of Rembrandt humor to send us off. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining, and we'll see you later.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.